Hey Jenna, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing good. Well, thanks for jumping on the podcast. I like to let my listeners know when I know somebody. So there's sometimes where I bring on somebody who I have no idea their background, don't know them at all, and I just want to talk about their business. But I do know you. So I taught a class probably about a year ago or so,
Yeah,
and you went to it and we just met up after that. I helped you do a few things in your business and we've kind of went from there.
yeah.
I just wanted to hear your story. So I don't really know like the back end story of like what made you, Jenna, like get into real estate? Like what even was that? Like
Yeah,
what
so my background, I'd say after college, I started in hospitality. Met my husband, who at the time was a chef owner of restaurants. So kind of, I did hospitality sales, he did restaurants. So it's very hospitality focused and oriented as a couple. We ended up moving 9 times in 10 years.
wow.
Yes,
What because
while
because
having
of
babies.
because of his job?
Um, Pretty much, yeah. So he, once we started having kids, we're like, ooh, this lifestyle of restaurants and stuff is not going to work. So we transitioned. He started over in a new career in corporate real estate. Um, and yeah, so we just kind of moved around for different opportunities for him. And through all the moving and looking at homes and buying them and selling them and all this stuff, that kind of led me to want to get into real estate once all my babies were in school.
So you said nine different locations? Like are we
Yes.
talking nine different states or are we moving like different counties?
3 states.
Okay, three states.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what made him get out of that like business and go into like corporate real estate? Like was there just something where it was just like you said like the schedule or
Yeah, it was the schedule. So he was working nights and weekends. And it was just a lot with having little kids. And it's just kind of like, okay, well, he's getting home after they're in bed. And it's like, so he didn't, get to see him a lot.
yeah. So
Yeah.
when did you decide to get your real estate license? Like what'd that look like? Did you have a job while you made that transition? What even made you think like, wow, I want to become a realtor?
Yeah, so it was when we moved back to Arizona. I'm born and raised here, but again, we left. We went to Colorado for a year and a half, Texas for a year and a half, and then once we came back, I knew that it was, we're establishing roots. We're back home. This is where we're going to be. And so I knew that was something that I wanted to do. I was going to wait until my youngest started kindergarten, so they were all three in school full time. But then COVID happened and they're homeschooled now, and we were getting ready, and my husband now, so the kids are home all the time. My husband's working from home. We had to kick a kid out of a bedroom because now he needs a home office, and the playroom was right next to the office, so just the house was not working for us anymore. So we went out looking for other houses and decided to go with a new build, and we were going to sell our house. So I hurry up, thankfully for COVID, I could do real estate school online at my own schedule at home. So I hurry up, got my license, and then sold our house. And then I was very excited. I loved it. And this was about probably by the time I was like, after we sold our house and stuff, it was like October, November time frame. So kind of like made it through the holidays. And then starting January, I really wanted to kind of pick up and go. That's January 2021.
Okay.
And my son, had a couple more months at home before he was in school. So I started a little sooner than I wanted to. But I'm so glad I did because there's definitely, a little bit of a learning curve with real estate. So I'm glad I started when I did. And here we are now,
So you started in 2020 or 2021?
2020.
Okay, wow. Yeah, so you're like you'd be considered like those COVID realtors.
Yep.
It's interesting because anytime I talk to somebody who started in that era, like in Arizona, we're both in Arizona, like that was a wild run for like from 2020 to 2022. Like it
Yes.
was interesting. Like me doing real estate for 17 years, it was one of the most interesting 2 to 3 years that we had. So for those
Yeah.
realtors who that's like what they got into, and that's like almost probably what you thought was normal. I was thinking
Yeah.
like, whoa, this is weird. But like
Yeah.
when you just start out, right, it's like all you know. It's like when I started out, I got into the business, right around when like the foreclosure era started. So like
Hmm.
I was coming in as just a young dude just trying to sell houses, and like everybody around me was like, this is weird. And I'm like, this seems like this is all I know, right? So like
Yeah.
the perspective is just what you know. So how did you go about like picking your how did you go about picking like where to go work? Have you worked at, several places, or how does that look for you?
Yeah. So, honestly, for me, after school, because we were in such a time crunch to hurry up and sell our house, um, I just jumped with the first brokerage that I came across from school. They came and talked to us at the school, and I'm like, oh, sounds great. Let's do it. So I did that, sold our house. And after selling our house, I was just kind of like, now what am I supposed to do? Didn't have, much going on. There was no sort of like leads or anything. They weren't telling you really how to get leads. It was all just like work your sphere and everything. So I ended up switching brokerages at that point. I went to a team that was a Zillow team. So they got tons of leads coming in from Zillow, and that was, a great opportunity. And I learned a ton there. It had, it was great to be able to learn, especially during, these COVID years of like, I feel like you learn so much. Obviously, you never learn everything. So I feel like I still learn new things all the time. But it's definitely just having all these different experiences on top of the housing market, what it was. So able to learn a lot. And then after a couple years there, I just kind of felt like, I kind of had gotten, had done everything that I could there. And so now I kind of branched out on my own, and I'm at a new brokerage where I'm just kind of a solo agent and doing my thing.
So when you had those leads coming in from a brokerage, right? So like they were just giving you leads the Zillow account, right? So
Mm,
what was the like best part of that? I want to know like the best part, worst part, because I've had a Zillow account from like more of like the owner position is probably how we'd say it, like the team leader and giving the
yeah.
leads to agents. What was
Yeah.
like the best part of that?
I think the best part of it was the experience and learning. It's all these clients that I never would have had otherwise. I think as a new agent, it was a great opportunity to, practice talking on the phone with these clients, meeting them in person, going through the contracts, going through all the steps. So I think that was the best part.
Okay. So what was the spot where you decided like I don't think that this is the right lead source anymore?
Zillow for me got really hard because, as you know, you've worked it. I felt like anytime I was like, the phone rings, you answer a Zillow call, and I was like, got all this like nervousness of being like, whatever they say, I'm going to have to drop everything I'm doing right this minute and run out and show them. And as a mom with three kids, like, that's just hard. I definitely have hours and, stuff that I can do it, but I feel like on the Zillow call, they're just calling into Zillow. So they're like, if you can't show us right now, then we're going to hang up and call again and talk to someone else. So that was kind of my, that was a difficult part of me. And again, with that hospitality background, I always wanted to be able to provide my clients the best customer service and help them get whatever they wanted and, drop everything for them. But it's hard.
Yeah, and I think the harder thing too was like dropping everything for like probably for you it was different than like when I was working for like dropping it for like really like probably 40% of the commission.
Yeah.
So it's like I
Yep.
mean there's trade-offs that we do in life and like hey, I can make sacrifices to go do this away from my family, but like if the compensation, you know what I mean? Like there is a little bit of like hey, if I'm going to leave my family, I feel like I've got to be compensated fairly for it.
Right.
So I feel like after a while like that can get overwhelming. We probably went to the same experience. Like when I got that Zillow account, I ran it myself and I knew I was running it and I knew I would pass it off to people. And it was the anxiety of being on call.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way I can explain it to people where they're like, why did you kind of walk away from that? I'm like, the anxiety of being on call is just not, it like can't, it just doesn't serve you. Like you're in a movie
Right.
and you get a call, you're in the shower and you get a call, like you're in the pool, you get a call. And I was like, I had a special ring on my phone for that. And like that ring went from like a fun ring to like it would ring and I'd almost be like, no, like could this come in from like 12 to 3 p.m. when like I want to like put in my solid hours of work? Like does it have to come in at like 6:52 right when I sat down at Arrowhead Grill to go to dinner with my wife? Like no,
Right.
right?
Right. Yes.
That anxiety was just like it was overwhelming. So okay, so
Yeah.
what made you feel comfortable? Because I talked to a lot of agents that are like on lead sources like that.
Hmm.
What made you decide like, hey, I could totally like because a lot of times like people don't want a lead source anymore. but I don't feel like they know of another option. So they're like, hey, like I still want to sell houses. And so, but I don't know what else to do. So what made you confident enough to like walk away from something that was paying you and giving you source of business?
Yeah, honestly, prior to your class that we talked about where we met a year ago, I didn't realize I could do my own lead sources. Obviously my sphere, door knocking, all that kind of cold calling, that 100%. But I did not realize that as an own, my own agent, not on a team, not on under, a major team brokerage, that I could have leads calling me. And so that was like totally eye-opening for me. I was like, wait a minute, I can do this too.
I think that
So
was that when I think we went to Cold Beer and Cheeseburger here in North
yeah,
Peoria. I think that's was the first place we met at after the class. And I remember talking to you. I was like, hey, how do you get your leads? And you told me like Zillow and pay-per-click or Google. You guys call it Google leads.
yeah,
And I was like, hey, you can get those yourself, right? And you're like, wait, really? And I
yeah.
was like, yeah, you can. So it was really cool to like, I like being able to offer that to people and just like tell them like, hey, you can go do this on your own and like bet on yourself. Like you got to pay for it, but like it's not like
Yeah,
a secret society of agents to like get these leads. It's like
I thought it
whoever
was.
wants to give Google this money and place a bet on themselves, they get that. So what has
Yeah.
been okay, so how did you make that like transition then? Like, okay, so you said, hey, I now know I can go get my own lead sources. Like, how did you actually implement that? Because like I said, there's gonna be a lot of listeners, Jenna, that hear what you're doing and they're like, wait, I am where she was at. And it's like they can't bridge that gap. Like they're like, hey, like I'm doing what Jenna was doing and I want to be where Jenna is. Like how did you go through that and like reconcile those thoughts of like making that like transition of like starting to pay for your own leads and things like that?
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of started backing up a little bit. It kind of started when I was with that first brokerage. Like I said, I felt like I didn't get much from them, but I did get that you should always like establish yourself as your own business. So even though I was under their brokerage, they're always like, you need to be advertising and marketing yourself, Jenna Walsh Realtor or sold by Bowers, whatever it is, not Chris, EXP Chris Bowers.
Yeah.
So always just establishing yourself as your own brand. So I kind of had that mindset from the beginning of wanting to be my own person, wanting to be my own business, essentially. And so then, I kind of was working on that through the couple years I was with the team. And then starting like January this year, I kind of got my own website up and running, did my own logos, all that kind of stuff. And then I just started with, the pay-per-click ad services in February. And I was just nervous because I was like, maybe Chris is just a unicorn and this only works for Chris. But and at the same time, like on my team, I was working the pay-per-click leads too. So, and I'd been pretty successful with it. So it's like I knew that it worked. But it's just like seeing all your success made me think maybe it's just Chris. So I kind of wanted to start it up, see how it was going. And then once I saw, okay, granted, you're great, you're amazing, but I can do it too. Like it works. It really does work. So
Yeah, that's what I've always tell people. I'm like, man, like I've had people listen to my calls. I'm sure you have. And I'm like, please
yeah.
listen to these calls. Like there's nothing groundbreaking about these. Like I actually had an agent call me yesterday and he was like, hey, like, could you give me your scripts again? And like I've given him my scripts so many times, right? And I'm like, I don't think this is actually a script issue. This is just like I have a lot of leads that come through. Like it's nothing masterful that I'm saying. It's just like I don't create motivation, I find it. And like you
Yeah.
can find motivation if you just have enough leads come through your door.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that look now for you? Like you said, you're doing like the Google leads, like the pay-per-click. How has that process went for you?
It's going great. So as I mentioned, I started the pay-per-click in February. And honestly, for me, kind of like learning a new CRM and, systems, I 100%, I feel like dropped the ball for the first few weeks of like, I should have kind of focused. And this is advice I'd give to anyone who's going to do the same thing. Learn your CRM, I think, before you start having leads come in. Because, once the CRM I was under at my team was very different than the one I signed up on my own. And so it took me a while to learn it and figure out how it works and where things are and how I track and, so it was just a big learning curve. And I wish I would have spent more time doing that. before I had my leads start coming in. So the first, like I said, the first few weeks of those leads, I kind of dropped the ball on following up with them. And, I would make the initial call or the initial call and then text, and then they didn't hear from me again. So
Yeah.
now moving forward, like they come in, I try calling them. If they don't answer, I'll send them a text message, usually with like a video of, hey, it's me, I'm a real person. And then just kind of follow up with them, get their, when they come in on the website, it tells you what kind of they're looking at, what homes they're looking at. And so setting up a search of similar homes that might be of interest to them.
Yeah. You've already got a few under contract, right? With that process.
Yes.
Okay. So and those, what's the cool thing about those is those, like I look at the ROI on the pay-per-click game and I say, hey, like this makes good ROI, right? But then I think what the hard part is for us to track is like that initial person that buys a house through pay-per-click. Like on my spreadsheet, it says pay-per-click, and that's how we run the numbers on the ROI. But like when they come back to us again, then on the spreadsheet, they're a repeat client. So they're not really in the ROI of pay-per-click anymore. Now they're on the ROI of just like things we do for our past clients to get them to come back. Or it's like, hey, they buy another property. Well, that's a repeat client now. Or that pay-per-click person, you did good business, they refer you to their friend.
Yeah.
Or their
and
family
that's already
members.
Yeah. And already that's happened with one of the ones that I got under. She referred me to her niece. She's referring me to her friend. I just met with her last night, and she was telling me that she's referring me to a friend that she has now. She's also got a place to sell. So I'm like, that's 4 deals from one lead. And she even told me last night, she's like, I just want you to know, she's like, I was telling my niece, like, I don't refer people, like use whoever you want. I don't care. And she's like, but the way that you work, the way that you respond, she's like, I just told my niece, like, you have to call this person. Like, she's great. She's amazing. She's like, and me, I don't refer anybody. And she's like, but Jenna is worth a call. And I was just like, that's incredible. So
Dude, that's so cool because like that first person, like you track that on your spreadsheet as pay-per-click, but then like all those other people now are referrals because like Jenna Walsh is a good realtor, right? So like you can run you could run like a boiler room if you wanted to. Like you could just totally get pay-per-click leads through the door, close 30 of them a year, and just like keep always doing that every year. I think what you're gonna notice because you are a good realtor is like spending that money, you're going to buy that lead to acquire the customer and then you're going to close them, but you're a good realtor. So like the ROI is just going to be like so crazy. We see that in our business where like, and I know you know this, but like we've got one client who's I think bought 14 homes through us. That was a pay-per-click lead, and I've sold 2 for him. And like, that's like, we only have 1 deal equating to pay-per-click for him.
Right.
Everything else is just repeat client, repeat client, repeat client, repeat client. So it's like, that ROI, like we really wanted to dive deep. I'm like, that was a $14 lead that came in 2020. And that's like 16 transactions. So like when I'm talking to people about pay-per-click, I'm like, this can actually like really work for you if you just, get a little bit of discipline in the day to do it.
Yeah.
And then just be a really good realtor and get the job done for these people. So you're probably amped about it. So do you mind if I ask you like what your budget is that you're spending a month?
Yeah. So right now, just my Google ad spend, I'm at $750 a month.
No way.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How many leads does that even bring in a month?
So since February, to now, early May, I've around 200 leads. So,
that's wild numbers. Like that, your ROI on that's going to be insane.
I know. And I'm like, one of these leads closing is gonna, it covers my budget for the year. Like, and not just on my ad spend, but on my website, and the company that I pay. So total, like my monthly expenditure for this with the website, ad spend, and the company that does it is $1,500. So
that's so cool to hear. Cause I can remember sitting with you at Cold Beer and Cheeseburger eating lunch. You're like, no, you could do this. You're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. It's like to hear the results now is so cool. So I'm really proud of you on placing that bet. What do you think, like other agents out there that, hear your story and they're sitting in a spot where they're either getting those leads or they don't think they can do it? Like, what advice would you give to those people? Like, is there some people where you're like, no, you should just stay at your brokerage where they're giving you these leads? I kind of look at it as like if if that person, team leader or brokerage is giving you these leads and you're already calling the lead, going and showing the homes, doing the inspection, the repair
Yeah.
list, the appraisals and closing. And I'm like, so I think the only thing that could stop people is just like one, maybe betting on themselves. Like they're just not that type of person. Or two, they just like don't feel like, oh, I don't have that, $1,500 or whatever it might take a month to like the cash flow to invest. Like, what do
Yeah.
you think? Like people who stay at brokerages and stuff like that, that know they can do it and see people like you and I doing it, but then just say like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't want to make the extra like 50 or 60% on the deal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think a big part of it, it's got to be, kind of like what you said. Well, I think first of all, like if you have the experience, like if you've closed some transactions, you know what you're doing, you know the process, then 100%, like you said, bet on yourself, go out, try it, see what happens. And I left my brokerage on good terms and I said, I'm going to try it for a year. If for some reason I fail miserably, like I hope that we end on good terms and I'll call you.
Yeah.
But just seeing the results and that, wow, I can do this and it does work. I'm so happy that you convinced me and talked to me and just betting on myself and taking a chance. And I think another thing we have in common is that we are both also real estate investors.
Yeah.
And so, when you mention that of like investing in yourself and like how I see it now is like, okay, here's what I'm going to spend in a year. And it's like, if I can just close one deal, it covers all that and it's break even.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I think I could do at least one. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
think what you're going to go through next, in my opinion, is you're going to start like upping the budget.
yeah,
And upping the budget, it's going to be like weird because there's a certain point where you start seeing the ROI and you're like, wait, what if I spent like $1,500 a month? What if I spent
yeah,
$3,000 a month? You're going to be like, whoa, like this could really blow up. And then we
yeah,
go through this next stage that you're probably going to go through. It's like, okay, I'm going to need some help. And that's a
yeah,
whole, like the same feeling you had probably when we met at Cold Beer and Cheeseburger about just getting your own leads.
yeah,
It's probably the feeling you're going to go through next when I'm like, no, like you could actually have somebody help you. And you're going to be like, I don't know. And I'm like, now you're not like, now you're investing in people.
yeah,
And that's when like your world can really just like compound so wildly is when like you're buying people's time.
yeah,
And I say that appropriately, but like you're off, like you're paying for someone's time in the day to do a job for you and give the same standards that you give. And
yeah.
that's when it's like, whoa, like it can all open up. So let's talk a
You're
little bit about,
talking on that real
uh
quick. You're so funny. I've got like my little notebook here of like my to-do list, and on there it's working to find a showing partner starting this summer. So
wow, look at
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Really? Cool.
yep, yep,
Very cool. Let me know when we can talk more about that. I've hired two showing partners on salary. One turned into actually my like personal assistant, and one has been with me for almost 2 years now, showing homes.
yeah,
It is the most rewarding thing to know that you've got somebody like meeting
yes,
these people and showing on a Saturday and Sunday. Like just this weekend, Nathan had I think three rounds of buyers, and some of them are new builds, and some of them looked at 8 homes, and some of them looked at 4, and then they're tech. I see the group text, right? I'm in the group
yeah,
text with all of them, and just like, hey, we can't get to this new build because the sales agent's not going to be there for 2 hours. Like let's go to like we're gonna both go to lunch separately. We'll meet back up. And I'm just thinking, like, man, like that used to be my day of like kind of living on call and
yeah,
like, oh, okay, like this one calls you like, hey, we went under contract. Now you're changing the route in the day, or just all that stuff, right? Or like somebody just
yeah,
texting you at 8 in the morning, you're like, hey, this one just popped up. Like, can we see it tonight? And you're like, oh my gosh, like my kids got this. Like, I know I have to do this for them, but like I kind of want like my kids. And so
yeah,
like it just frees your mind up when you're like, whoa, like somebody will actually go do all this for me in the day so I can go live my life still. So
yeah,
let's talk a little bit about, so that's cool. Let me know when you
yeah.
need more help on that because this will be so
I
exciting. Let's
will.
talk about the investing. So how many rental properties do you own?
We just closed on our fifth like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. What got you into
Mhm.
that? Like when was your first one purchased?
Um, well, I purchased one kind of a long time ago. It was kind of more of like a family situation where we were kind of helping out. But since then, our first one since then was January of last year, 2022, that we closed on.
That was your second one?
Yeah.
Wait, so you went
So
from 2 to 5 in 2 years?
yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, from 1 to 5.
Okay. 1 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and it's unfortunate because my husband's been talking about this for the last 10 years and put a whole plan together 10 years ago of wanting us to jump in and start it. And I was just kind of like, I think my mindset wasn't there yet. I didn't understand it. I was kind of like, but why would we like spend all this? Like, we can't buy 2 houses. We can't, we can't do that. That's too much risk. It's too scary. Like, I didn't understand real estate and I didn't see the bigger picture. And now it's like, oh, I wish we would have started 10 years ago. I wish we would have bought those homes that he'd been talking about. And so hindsight's always 2020, but I think as you learn more about real estate and the opportunities of, appreciation and the tax benefits and cash flow, all the things I didn't really understand before.
Cost segregation.
It's yeah, yes,
That's a wild
yes,
one.
yes,
So, man, that's a lot of properties in such a short amount of time.
yeah.
I think when you like said just now that like 10 years ago you could have did this right. Here's what I think
Mm-hmm.
of, Jenna, and this is what I go through too, is it makes me realize like all these things that we're usually worried about are almost like in our head. And it's almost like even if we would have failed at it, just getting that out of our head and moving faster.
Yeah,
Like I just think of so many times in my life where I've been just perplexed with like, oh, I'm nervous about this. And I did it, right? So like I think of like anything cool that I've accomplished in the last decade. I always
yeah,
think like it started with like self-doubt, insecurity. It started with like, no, this isn't going to work. But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no, I kind of want this to work. Like, that's the direction I want my life to go. And then it's just like, no, you can't do it. This is why you can't do it. Everybody else isn't doing it.
yeah,
And then, but I think I'm like, all those things started with like this anxiety and this fearfulness. And I think it's only a certain breed of people who like have it. There's like dream. Then there's like all this underlayment of like anxiety, scared. Is it going to work for you? It could fail, pride.
right.
And it's like those people who can just like push through that and still go do it. Almost all of that stuff when I talk to people like works. Like they look back and they're like, I don't know why I thought about it so long. I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. And so I think what you should do, and I'm talking to myself as well, is like we should capture that moment of like these things. Like when you're somebody who makes like you're a calculated person, you make like you make smart moves.
Yeah,
So it's like just start trusting yourself and betting on yourself. Like you don't usually probably get like dumb ideas, right? Like you probably
yeah,
like if something's in your like mind and you're like, this is where I want to go, and you're thinking of it, I'm sure like I think that's like actually like God telling you like go that direction, right? Like just
yeah.
go that like that's like go that way, like just do it, like bet on yourself and do it. I think like you get those ideas for a reason, and then the world just like tries to just crush you and say like, no, this couldn't be you.
a
You
hundred
can't do
percent.
this. So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
where are your properties at? So with these 5, like I know you've got some out of state, correct?
Yeah, so 4 of them are here in Arizona, and then we do have one in Tennessee.
Okay. I didn't know 4 were here.
Yeah,
That's hard to pull off over the last 2 years. Stuff's expensive here.
yep.
Okay.
So another reason on, why I wanted to branch out on my own is like if I can make 30, 40, 50% more per commission, that's a lot more investment properties for us
Yeah.
that we can go buy. So we're trying to get to 10 as soon as possible.
Very cool.
Um, and that adds up. So
So over the last 2 years with these 4 that you've bought in Arizona, were these all on the MLS?
um yes, all of them were. Yep. One was definitely actually one of them was a for sale by owner on Zillow that my
Okay.
husband came across. Actually, you know what? I'm so wrong. 2 of them were
Okay.
for sale by owner on Zillow's.
Very
One
cool.
of them was pretty good condition, had to do some minor cosmetic things. The other one, it was an investor. He had tenants in there. They trashed the place. But we were able to get it a good enough deal, and we kind of went in and flipped it, but then held on to it and rented it out. So, and then the other one was an open door
Okay.
home. Um, Open door, bought it for 560 last May.
Yeah, of course
We
they did.
closed on it. Yeah, we closed on it 2 weeks ago at 445.
That's so I don't know how
I
they
know.
stay in business. I don't
I
know how
know.
many homes I've sold to them, like through my clients to them.
Yeah.
And just like I see later what they sold them for, and I'm like, wow, you just
Yeah.
must be in the business of burning $100,000 a house. That's cool. I
Right.
wish
I
I could run a
know.
company like that.
I know. And that one, it's just like, it's in a beautiful community, tons of community amenities. And we're just like, it's going to be with interest rates what they are for investors right now. We're like, it's going to be break even for a little bit until we can refinance. But we're like, we could sell it in a couple years and probably make 100 grand on it. So we're like, it's an appreciation play on that one for sure.
Yeah. Are you doing any type of creative financing on these, or are these just straight like 25% down?
Yep, these have all been 25% down.
That was me
So,
too.
yeah, moving forward, we're looking into the creative financing more. We're going to look into, I really want to do a midterm rental for
Okay.
one.
Huh?
So, not quite Airbnb. I think that's a little too much. But, a traveling nurse, contract workers, that type of thing, where they're going to be there for 60 plus days at a time. You can charge a little bit more for rent than you can, 12-month tenant, and they're usually like a single person or maybe a couple, and um, furnished, but they usually tend to, take decent care of it, or they're out working all day. So
Yeah.
we're going to
I,
try that.
I actually like to hear that you put 25% down because like that's kind of my wife and I's story with our 20 that we own. I mean, they were just a few of them were less than that just because they were primaries at the time, right?
Yeah.
But like almost like 15 or 16 of them were like 20 to 25% down. So it's like I hear these people all the time. They just keep going to like these creative financing classes. And they're like,
Yeah.
I can pick, and I'm like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that doesn't work. I don't,
Yeah.
I meet a lot of people who have a lot of properties. And I'm like, how did you buy these? And I'm like 20, 25% down. So I'm like, really,
Yeah.
those people have just like mastered the art of like how to live below their means and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or when someone says that, I'm like, wait, like I've seen your house and it's nice. And if you can do 25% downs, then that means you have cash flow coming through your door. And then wait, like your debt to income ratio has to be pretty good. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like just a few things I can hear about somebody. I'm like, okay, like I've seen their house that they have. If you have 25% downs and you're buying in Arizona, that means that's a lot. So you
Yeah.
make good money. And so I just keep going down this road of like, okay, they're probably like their debt's got to be in a pretty good position because you've got to be under like a 45% debt to income ratio to do this. And
Yeah.
so like I'm the one who's always like trying to teach the class. It's like you just got to go make a lot of money and then buy real estate because everybody else wants to
Yes.
sell this like sexy dream of like it's creative financing and sub two and you get somebody to give you their house. And I'm like, but like the one person that would do that, like the sub two person, I'm like, so then do I just have to take their like it seems like so few options of people that would do that.
Yeah.
So then like,
Yeah.
do I just take that house because the person will do that? Or like is it such a good deal that I just take anything? Because I've
Yeah.
always looked for like the neighborhood I wanted us to be in. Like I want to own these properties for 40 and 50 years. So I'm like, I'm very into like, okay, like where is this neighborhood going in the next 50 years? Like, who are they renting to? Like things
Yeah.
like that. And so it's like I just didn't want to take on like whoever would creatively give me their house. I'm like, no, I
Yeah.
don't I don't want your house. Like maybe there's a reason why you're creatively trying to offload it to me. I don't know. Maybe
Right.
we'll get smarter at this.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that
I
something
think,
that you dove down that road at all to try to figure it out? Because that's what I'm going through right now with I mean, I'm open to the conversation. It's just
yeah.
not how I got to my 20. It's just I'm now
Right.
looking at it like, okay, like if I could do this with like not 60, 70, 80,000 down, that'd be fun.
Right, exactly. So that's the same boat. Like we've done the ones 25% down. That's the way my husband wants to keep doing it. But I'm like the one more of like, I'm listening to all the podcasts and seeing the videos and stuff. So I'm like, let's just like explore it. Cause I'm like, yeah, if we could put 15% down instead of 25% down, like that's a lot of extra money. And again, gets us to be able to buy more rentals.
Yeah.
So and not even necessarily doing like the sub-tune stuff, but there's certain, private lenders out there. There's hard money lenders out there. There's just different investment lenders that you don't always necessarily have to do 20-25% down. So
Yeah. And has
yeah.
that opened up to has that opened up the conversations with your clients? Like them
Yes.
knowing that you have rental properties? Is that like have other people been reaching out to you or talking to you about certain things?
100%. So actually, my two pay-per-click clients that I'm working with are both investors. And I think it's just because I can like actually speak intelligently on it and from personal experience. It's like I think you just gain that trust so much quicker with them, and they're like, oh, She knows what she's talking about. She knows what she's looking for. She does this personally. And it's like, I'm not gonna, tell you to do something that I wouldn't do, you know? So
Yeah, it's like a different language.
yeah,
I think when an investor knows that you go to work as a realtor and you take your profits and go invest it in real estate, they realize it because they're doing something for their income, right? And
yeah,
you're doing real estate for your income. Like they're taking their profits from whatever they do to make money. When
right.
they realize like, oh, you take your profits from like just because you're a realtor, I don't think they always want to work with a realtor. They want to work with a realtor, to me, in my opinion, that like is like I sell real estate for my job and then I
Yeah.
take my profits from it and then I go invest it back into real estate. So like, okay, like if you're placing bets on real estate with your hard-earned money that you go to work hard for, like I
Hmm.
trust you. And that's what I feel like my investor clients, because I work with a lot of mom and pop investors, like not these investors buying like 100 homes a year.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of people who like they got a few $1 million, right? And they're just like,
Yeah.
hey, I want to go park like a million of it and I want to go buy like 2 or 3 properties. They just want to see like a 6, 7% return on their money. And
Yeah.
they're not really even trying to go aggressively make lowball offers. They're just like, hey, I just want to go buy something in Arizona, park my money. And I think when they hear like the ROI language that you can speak with them,
Right.
and you're like, hey, like this is how much you could rent it for, and this is what your ROI
Yeah.
is probably going to be. And I think they really sense like, okay, like she probably has vendors that can help me. Like it's just like
Yeah.
kind of a whole package deal of they're like, okay, if this person's playing in that arena, like me knowing them would be better.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too. Um, just them knowing you, them trusting you. I had a point of what I was going to say and it just totally went from my mind.
That's no
So
problem. So
we'll
let's
scratch that.
talk about when we went to Starbucks the other day.
Hmm.
Like I was like, is she the mayor of the town? Because I don't know how many people walked in. They're like, Jenna, and you're like, this is my friend Chris, right? And then like 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, like Jenna, hi, and I was like, so what does that look like? Do you get a decent amount of referrals? Because you're just being in a Starbucks with me for an hour and a half, I think was two, if not three people that knew you. And so
Yeah.
what does that look like? Are you pretty well like networked in the community? Because I would consider that my Starbucks and nobody knows me there. So I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Right. So is there something that we like I could do better? How does this go down?
I think just growing up in the area, and just being really involved. I volunteer at my church. My kids go to school. I try and network and not even network, but just meet my neighbors. Like we actually, the new build house that we're in, like we moved to a community that I think is really, really special. Like so it's gated, but there's two communities and like the side we're on, it's one house of streets. And like we moved here, so it's like it's gated. The kids can be out riding their bikes and scooters and playing volleyball, doing whatever they want to do out there. And we have a little bit more comfort and peace just with the world the way that it is. But it's also like I've hosted like pizza night where we brought in like a pizza food truck and then all the neighbors came and got pizza or whatever. It's just I think it's a special street and I always want that community feel. So I just try to create it as much as I can with and that's not even just for real estate. That's just I think again with my hospitality background, like the type of person that I am, like I always want to have community, like I always want to be hosting my family for events at our house. And I love when I get to do different, like, our church neighborhood group, or we have like another, just like a neighborhood group where we've been doing dinners monthly at each other's house. So a book club that we did. And I don't know. My husband's the opposite, but I'm social being and I love people and like getting to meet people and stuff. So
I like how you say it with such like passion because you went to the word like network and then you just went straight to like no like friends, right? It's like
yeah,
sometimes you're just like, I mean, like just go out and be like a good human being, right? Like just
yeah,
like care about people and love them. And it's like, yeah, I
yeah,
sell real estate, but like that's not my intentions of being here. If you want to,
right,
if you want to buy or sell a house, me great. If you want to use your cousin who's a realtor, God bless you. Like, I mean, this
right.
world keeps spinning, right? This isn't all
Yep.
about business. What does
Yep.
that look like? Because we talked about your pay per click or your internet leads. What does that look like for your network of people? So like what do you do on a consistent do you have some consistency in what you do with your past clients network on how you market to them or do any events?
Yeah. So monthly at a minimum, I send out like a monthly newsletter, email, try to be very, very consistent about that. Sometimes it gets crazy and I'll forget a month, but do that regularly. And that's to like any client that's in my database, a past client, these pay-per-click leads, anyone. I try and do quarterly pop buys for my past clients. So it's gotten to the point where it's a lot. So
Yeah.
like this month, I'm actually mailing my things because it's like I used to like drive to each house and drop off, at Halloween time, I did pumpkins and said something about I'm always carving time out for you. May I took them like not this May, the year before, like I took them like little flowers and stuff. So always trying to do things like that. But this year I'm going to mail it out just because I'm like, it's getting a lot. I've got clients all over the valley and it would probably take me 2 days to drive and stop by everybody.
So, okay, so you do the monthly email, you do the quarterly
Mm-hmm.
pop buys that might turn into a
Yep.
quarterly gift. So like you're actually gonna
Yeah.
like, are you gonna mail the same type of gift that you would have like popped by with them? Because like that seems like it would
Yeah.
get a little pricier, right? But maybe not with like
Well,
gas and time.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. With gas and time. So this is the first time I'm mailing it, but it's going to be, actually, it's not true because in December I mailed them all, like ornaments. So just trying to find something smaller that I can mail in like a little bubble envelope. So this year or for this month, I'm doing, I have little cards printed up and it says, I have it right over here, but like just popping by to wish you a great summer or something like that. And I put love your favorite realtor, Jenna, and then I'm putting inflatable like beach balls in there. So it's not even anything that's like, I'm not sending these people like the best gift in the world that they're going to cherish, but it's something tangible,
Thoughtful.
something to be like, I'm thinking of you,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that's
So,
super
and
cool.
yeah. And I
Any
kind of try and do the same thing like with my clients, like with my closing gifts. Like I always just try to be like thoughtful on like the clients I closed on Monday. Like she was telling me I've known them forever, like literally forever. He was my gymnastics coach forever growing up. And when we were walking in the house, she told me, she says his name, he brings me coffee in bed every morning. So, and they have their dog that they're obsessed with and they love. So I got like a dog toy and a dog treats and I got them little coffee mugs and just tried to get things that are personal to them and like making know like I'm listening to you. I'm hearing what you're saying. I can see what you value and what's important to you. And I'm thinking about you.
That's very cool. And so these people
Yeah.
all just go into like a CRM that helps you keep track of it all.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I could see you being that style of person that would mail out stuff to people, like gifts. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like when I hear pop buys, I remember I used to do them back in the day,
Yeah.
and I'm like, whoa. Like when I teach classes, I always say like, hey, like when you're scaling a company, your new version of yourself can sometimes change. That doesn't mean that you become less thoughtful. It's just
Right.
like you said, like now it's like maybe I gotta mail it, maybe I can't drive by. Because just like,
Right.
hey, like once you start having clients, an hour away, it's like,
Right.
and then you're 5 years in the business, 10 years in the business, you're like, whoa, I'm gonna do this for like I had a guy last year that I was talking to, a good friend, or not a good friend of mine, but a friend of mine in real estate, and he told me it took him like 5 days to do his pop buys.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
gosh.
whoa, bro, like that's painful to hear. But I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
also like no judgment. And then I'm like, hey, if that's how you're getting your 40 or 50 pieces of business a year, like it seems better to me than calling expireds for 3 hours a day the whole year, right? So I'm like, so there's no judgment. And I'm just like, I heard 4 days, 5 days, and I was like, whoa, that's a lot. Like you might want to start just like spending a few $1,000s to get those things in the mail. But
Right. And there's different companies too that I want to start looking into more, but it's like they can mail this stuff for you, which I'm like, that's helpful.
yeah, totally. I think you're on the right track with like your thoughtfulness, because I've heard
Yeah.
of some people who like leverage like these websites that like will send like gifts to them. But I think like what you do, like I just heard, is like it's being heard. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like this is what they do. My wife's like that. Like when she does a closing gift for like I do like no closing gift for my clients. And like when her clients, it's like, I'm like, what is this? And she's like, okay, they got 5 kids, and the pool is the main reason that they're buying this house. And she's got this big basket and all like pool noodles and life
Yes.
vest and a dog life vest and goggles. And I'm like, whoa, like we are different people, aren't we? And like I just
Yep.
appreciate that. I'm like, you are a different human being than I am. We're both very thoughtful. It just
Yeah.
comes out in totally different ways to the world. So I'm like,
Yes.
but yeah, so you sound like that person that's like, you're heard. So
Yes, for
cool.
sure.
Well, what as we're ending here, what advice do you have to agents that are just right now, maybe they're brand new, or, maybe they've been in the business forever, but they're just struggling. Jenna, I just talked to an agent yesterday that's been doing business for a long time. And they're like, I did
Mhm.
one deal this year. And I'm like,
Mm.
whoa. And they're like, I was doing a lot more. And so they try to go to the interest rate angle. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I like, there's a lot of people out there doing really, really well right now. So like, what is that? Like, what would you like any advice to an agent that's been doing it for a while, that's not doing a lot of deals anymore, or just someone who's brand new? Like, what advice do you have to those realtors?
I think they're probably a lot in their head. Like, and I know because I've been there.
Me too.
Like you gotta get out of your head. You gotta, you know, I think you said it the other day where it's like, oh yeah, you say this all the time. Get in opportunities way. So it's like I heard that and I'm like, that rings so true. Like again, just doing things to make you like people recognize you. And same thing, like I told you, like I really am passionate about my community, but it's like if someone from there's like I had someone the other day at volleyball talking to me about real estate, and it's just I didn't ever bring it up. Like I'm just a mom. Like I love the other team moms and dads. Like I love the families at my daughter's volleyball team, but they know that I do real estate because we're friends on social media. And so then they just ask you questions. So I think it's just putting yourself out there somewhat, but never being like salesy and and same thing. Like she can ask me all the questions she wants, and if she wants to go use her cousin that's a realtor, that's wonderful for her. I'm happy for her if she gets her questions answered and gets to her end goal. That's great. I was and I think there's just a different way of doing business. Like I was talking to a lender this morning about some questions that a client, and he's like, I'm so pissed. I can't believe she's gonna cancel. Like I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
First of all, our job is to help these clients. Like, and so this happens. Like, maybe the time's not right now for her, but maybe it will be in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. But it's like, it's never about my bottom line and like my commission. It's always 100% putting the people first. And it's like, what do you want? What is your goal? How can I help you get there? And then let's make this successful for you. And if I win too, then that's great. But like, let's focus on what you're trying to do.
What a cool mentality. Put the people first. It just makes
Yes,
sense, right? It seems so
it does.
simple, but it's not so simple for everybody. So many people have just like this commission attitude, and
Yeah.
it's awkward to me. I get it. Maybe some people like gotta like get that deal to close to pay their bills, so there's a lot of pressure in their life. So there's no judgment in that statement. But man, like you are right. Like I get on the phone with some realtors when like I'm canceling a deal,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just like almost like, could I just bring the rocks to you so you can drive by my house and throw them at me? Like, I don't like, whoa, like the buyer just
Yeah.
doesn't want the house. And it's all like this aggression towards me as my lack of profession. Like, you don't know how to keep your clients in the deal. They're making like, they're talking bad about my client. I'm like, they like, have you never experienced this? Like, I'm
Right.
almost to the level of like, are you new? Like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
always joke around. You probably heard me say this, but like, and it, anytime somebody calls me an agent, they're like, "Oh, I've got a few deals falling apart," right? And they're sad. And I'm like, "How many?" And they're like, "2." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, go get 4." Like, if you're doing a lot of business, like you should always have 3 or 4 deals, kind of always falling apart, like because you're just
Yeah.
doing a lot of business, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like, what a weird world to be in, where like your emotions are going to be so contingent on whether somebody's buying that house or not. I'm like, hey, like
Yeah.
the roof's falling apart, the pool doesn't work. Like, yeah, they just want to back out. That seems reasonable, right? No. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like we're just gonna go find a new house. God bless you, okay?
Yeah.
But it's just
And
interesting how like you see that in the community sometimes. You're like,
yes.
whoa, like just what I have found, Jenna, is I have found, and that's a personal opinion, is it's those the client can sometimes be hard to work with. So
Mm-hmm.
like they don't want to go back to that client and have that conversation. So it's really nothing about me. It's
Yeah.
like, oh shoot, now in my day, I've got to call my client, tell them the contract's canceling. We got to put it
Yeah.
back on the market. I might be losing the listing over this or whatever. So I'm like, okay, this isn't actually towards me. This is that they've got to go back and have this conversation with their client. And some clients are
Yeah.
easier now. So maybe like this is a harder client. So like they just took it out on me for a minute because it was easier than their client. And I'll take one on
Yeah.
the chin, I guess, for them. But that's
Yeah. And something that I hope too, like I think especially new agents learn, because I learned this lesson. Like the first deal I had to cancel, I was so scared to call the guy. I thought he was going to be so mad at me. And he's like, oh, okay, like totally get it. No big deal. And I was just like, oh, that was way easier than I expected. Obviously, not all agents react that way, but I think us as agents, we need to realize like our goal is to work together. Like I know sometimes it's like, the listing agent's like, oh, I'm just going to beat this buyer's agent up, or the buyer agent's like, I'm going to be, like that's not what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to make a win for my client. We're trying to make a win for your client. Like, how can we work together and win? Like, have everyone be happy. Like, it's got to be win-win for everyone. So,
Very cool. Well,
yeah.
Jenna, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I think the real estate community will be better for hearing your story. I
Oh,
just
thank
like
you.
how you do your business. I like who you are as a person. And so I just wanted everybody to hear you just this little time in real estate and what you're accomplishing. So I think it's going to be like the coolest next few years for you and your family, like financially, what you're going to produce. So I'm excited to see it.
Thank you. I'm excited, and thank you for having me and for all of your help and putting all your stuff out there. It's been life-changing for us. So thank you.
Very cool. Well, you're welcome. And thanks for jumping on.
Have a good day.
Okay, bye, Jenna.
Bye.